In the unexplored realm of the mind, where thoughts dance in the shadows and emotions shine like shooting stars, we delve into the depths of hidden wisdom. Come with me on a mysterious and fascinating journey through the pages of Our Mental Forces by Prentice Mulford, an ancient manuscript that unfolds like a magical map to the hidden potential of the human mind. Mulford's words, woven with threads of mystery and power, guide us through secret passages where reality intertwines with fantasy. In this mystical corner of consciousness, we will discover that our mental forces are like magical seeds, capable of blooming in gardens of unlimited possibilities. What wonders await in the darkest corners of our thoughts? What cosmic secrets will be revealed as we explore the depths of our own minds? Prepare to dive into an ocean of transcendent reflections and unexpected discoveries. Let Mulford's whispered words be the key that unlocks the doors of your perception, unlocking the vastness of your own mental forces. In this journey, reality merges with fantasy, and the unknown becomes an ally in our quest for understanding and transformation. Welcome to a world where the mind is the greatest treasure, and imagination is the compass that will guide us to uncharted horizons. Each thought is a brick with which we build our destiny for better or for worse. Thoughts shape our face and give it its personal expression. Our thoughts determine the behavior, presence, and form of our entire body. The laws of perfect beauty and perfect health are identical. Both depend entirely on the state of mind, or in other words, on the coherence of the main thoughts we transmit to others, and that others transmit to us. Today, the immense power of thoughts is not only wasted, but is something worse due to ignorance and ingrained habits over the years. We dissipate our energies in the wrong direction, constantly accumulating greed, envy, mockery, and other vices, only to discharge them by passing through bad transformers to other people, perhaps damaging them, but always harming ourselves. Other people's thoughts can penetrate us in the same way that harmful gases can penetrate our homes. Constantly repeat these words: I do not want to be enslaved by anyone, and you will find a way to free yourself from slavery, dependence, and begging. According to the substance from which our dreams are made, we will endow our destiny with gold or explosives. The deeper the dreams, the more perfect the introspection and abstraction, the better our mental strength's ability to act within a radius of thousands of kilometers. All that we call hidden forces, like telepathy, are generated in this way. Any form of thought can materialize instantly if executed with sufficient intensity. All people potentially possess these forces. Every day we stylize a phase of our being. We slip into the skin of another imaginary character. The main role we play most often will give our body the mask of that role, its dominant aspect. One who spends most of his life complaining out of habit, celebrating in a bad mood and whining, pollutes his blood, ruins his features and understanding of his face. In fact, in the invisible laboratory of his mind, a malicious agent is being created. Thought once transformed into action, that is, once thought, will generate an inevitable law that will attract the same thoughts that surround it. Yielding to an irritated and helpless state of mind means opening the doors to the thoughts of all the irritated and helpless people in the city, that is, loading our great magnet, the mind, with harmful and destructive currents and connecting our mental battery to all currents of the same kind. One who thinks of stealing and killing comes into spiritual contact with all the thieves and murderers in the world. In the end, we become what we are accustomed to seeing ourselves, and we must not allow others to shape us according to their thoughts, that is, in the way that suits them best. Hence the ideal of the good boy or the exemplary wife. We will know what is truly feminine only when women begin to act for themselves. When that happens, the world will suddenly be psychically twice as rich as in the current situation, where man, exclusively pursuing his ideal of masculinity, has imposed a forced ideal of femininity. People who are always cautious, who foresee or weigh everything, always fall into the trap, because constantly counting on difficulties amounts to creating them, a habit so ingrained that it seems impossible to root out. Everything you think about will attract the same thing from the invisible. By inwardly meditating on any type of crime, you will attract to yourself the criminal realities from the dark side of life. These hidden and invisible forces are the ones that create the material conditions of crime paving the way for that side of existence. If in your favorite daily routine every morning you wisely read news about murders, thefts, scandals, and tragedies, what is happening on earth, in the sea, and in the air attracts something invisible of the same kind. You align yourself with the lower spiritual events that pass through you and act on you in such a way as to make you more exposed to them, even physically, thus increasing the chances of being touched by something that comes from that region of collisions, especially if for years you do it while having breakfast, that is, in a state of absorbed passivity. Perhaps deep down it's not as outdated as the insightful white race barbarian thinks, that the esoteric and childlike peoples of the East prefer to greet the morning with a hymn to the sun, or with the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, rather than reading the newspaper with its obscenities. Everything is a reality that flows in the invisible, and he who immerses himself in these currents, the lowest, most frightening and petty, even as an interested listener who contentedly listens with a bit of morbid excitement and wrongly believes he is far from the battlefield, ends up being swept away by them. But the circuit is already closed, allowing the current that carries evil and crime to pass through. Whoever delights in reading news about thefts, armed robberies, and illegal acts is at greater risk of attracting more of these same things to himself and his home. This person and the thief end up being attracted to each other, as both swim in the same river of thoughts, unaware of the power that unites them. But no power is as irresistible as that of which we are not aware, for we cannot oppose it. Anyone who, for 10 seconds, imagines something abominable and terrible, something that will despair another person, body and soul, has already set in motion a force that will partially affect him. Anyone who, for 10 seconds, imagines something pleasant and loving, something that would bring joy to another person, without sting or shadow, sets in motion a force that will also partially affect him. The longer the senses are oriented towards an object, for good or for evil, the stronger its invisible reality becomes. In the end, it will always be compelled, nourished by a new substance of thoughts, to mature as an agent of joy or an agent of pain in the visible world, which is nothing more than the densest level of the invisible world. Directing the mind towards a goal willingly and without hesitation, creating a desirable and joyful atmosphere for an indefinite period, is not very fashionable at the moment, where people mainly think about the quality of beer or planning an outing. Women are always busy with the latest fashion magazine, the dressmaker, the bridge party, or the trip they will take in the summer, always engrossed in a picture they vaguely observe almost erotically. Never with enough strength to face life, contenting themselves with entertaining it with countless mornings and afternoons, when they could and should slowly wring its neck, one by one. The state of mind in which we find ourselves is often a force capable of orchestrating events in our favor or against us. For example, there are beings who are born with a soul, but without impetus, without purpose or direction, unable to take care of themselves or preserve what they have inherited. These are academic examples of a way of thinking that breeds failure. Others, however, born in poverty, are capable of accumulating prosperity from the outset, directing every thought and will towards a goal and succeeding, if making money in itself can be considered a success. The promotion of any enterprise begins with imagination. Those who start from a modest position and become owners of 12 railroad companies are always spiritually ahead of their current position. As soon as they reach one position, they already desire another. One who endures years of life as a sweeper has obviously never seen himself in another situation. That is, he has never psychically crossed the boundary of the sweeper profession. He may envy others who are in a better position, wishing to have many things they possess, but he has never said to his own soul, "I want to free myself from this work and I will achieve it. I will rise to something purer and higher than rag collecting." However, envy alone does not help to progress, and this man will remain a sweeper all his life. One who is content to see the finest things in this world as unattainable, one who sits on the first step of the ladder complaining about all those above him, will probably always remain at that level. Any state of mind in which we remain inert for a certain time leads us to things in life that favor that state of mind. One who decides to start a business or enterprise or develop an invention creates something out of invisible elements that are as real as any machine of iron or wood. In turn, this enterprise or plan will attract more forces favorable to its realization, forces that will materialize in the visible world. But one who fears misfortune, one who lives in fear of encountering something bad or an accident at any moment, builds a world of thoughts, attracting a silent force that, according to the law of attraction, gathers around him harmful and destructive elements. Success as much as failure originates from the same law, which can favor both the one attempting to save someone drowning and the one stabbing that same person. Every time we think, we create something out of invisible elements that contain forces that can benefit or harm us, depending on the thoughts we have previously transmitted. The cornerstone of any effort for success, in this existence and in any other, is to never think that something is impossible, to not immediately dismiss an idea, no matter how crazy or absurd it may seem. Wait for your instincts to gather, for they are not always present when you need them. Only then could that light dew of dawn appear, which only those who are seated in the vestibule of what is to come partake in. But this greatest and purest of miracles, even if visible to all, would last only a blink of an eye, for it would pass immediately and unhindered into the brain of humanity. The crazier and more fantastic a thought is, the more time should be allotted to act upon it. Shouting "impossible" simply because something seems impossible to us means breeding the bad habit of instantly despising things. Consciousness acts like a prison full of doors that do not open onto infinity, and both inside and outside of this prison there remains only an insignificant and solitary human being. The power of the state of mind, regardless of what happens to us, always has its origin in a long-practiced state of mind. One who quietly and without hesitation harbors in his heart a keen desire for success, without wavering, drinks from the invisible river as many auxiliary forces for his spiritual scheme as the embryo drinks its mother's blood according to the established plan, infallibly absorbing all the elements it will need at each stage of its development. For the blessed, the whole universe is like a placenta nourishing their actions. By auxiliary forces, we mean above all the ever-increasing spiritual fertility, the discovery of new paths and means. Thus we use the form see. Things happen by themselves. Language has known this for a long time, and grammatically, we all use this great creative word perfectly, but unfortunately, we fail to put it into practice. Fundamentally, however, auxiliary forces mean that we will always encounter the right people to advance our plans. Never waste your energy looking with your bodily senses for these auxiliary forces and their assistance. Let your unconscious take care of them. You only need to provide the appropriate environment like a pregnant woman. Let the embryo grow in the most natural way possible, according to its inherited secret laws. Eventually, this will make it possible for the new being to see the light of day. The mother has nothing else to do but hope. Similarly, the mind acts during the gestation of a plan. It constantly thinks, "I am determined, onward." Only thinking, not just with the brain and heart, but with every movement, every cell. This will eventually generate a force that will bring every idea into reality with the same certainty with which a crane lifts its load. The forces that are born with the mind in the invisible continue to act even when the body is unconscious. To his beloved God will give in a dream, and they will wake up, catching sight of all open paths and a series of new plans and methods converging towards the beloved goal. It is precisely these new plans that will set the body in motion, for one cannot remain still and will see in advance how everything comes to pass. The time has come to act with the right speed and certainty, but it may also happen that before reaching this maturity to act, one is already so exhausted from seeking appropriate opportunities that the necessary freshness is lacking to assimilate the liberating idea when it actually presents itself. Every success in business relies on a continuous flow of new plans, thoughts, combinations, and ideas. All these thoughts and words about misery, calamities, and crimes undermine the ability to attract positive things. It is a way of stealing money from one's wallet and health from one's body. When we surround ourselves with great and healthy things, well-being can grow almost indefinitely, even if not in reality, at least in the imagination, towards a world filled with young and free animals, forests and seas. One who does not have the fortune of having dogs, deer and birds as living friends should at least dream of them. One who feels oppressed and weak and cannot leave the city must throw his mind into storms and tides, or visit a circus and personally appreciate what the beautiful horses, agile acrobats and clowns are capable of, and observe how in this atmosphere of psychic diversity, the worries of the audience unconsciously vanish from their faces. What we call the driving force of the state of mind is not the desire for material objects, for desire is always accompanied by impatience and suffering, and impatience carries away what one desires, or at least delays its arrival. When you think now and here I want it, you are tired of this eternal waiting, now or never, you are going in the wrong direction, you waste your forces in disputes and discussions because what you desire has not reached you, and you do not focus your forces on the desire itself, where it must act, but on the absence of what you desire, thus reinforcing its absence. Never let yourself be carried away too far by desire. Do not let a desire break your heart. It would be like someone angry, destroying their own car because it got stuck in the mud. It is better to use the force to get the car out of the mud. However, whoever has managed to avoid the destruction of the cradle of their desire must be careful not to make another mistake, as understandable as it may seem. To superficially see oneself in the desired situation, as if one had already reached the desired goal, as if one were an image even idealized of oneself. Let's imagine someone who wants to own a very beautiful and special house to live in with a loved one. It will not help him to imagine his life in that house as if he were watching a movie. He must not see it from the outside as if he were looking at himself in a mirror. He must be inside, within the desired self, otherwise he will only be its spectator expressed in words. The true inner strength of the mind would be something like, "My pure and joyful self is complete. Even with all these things, I need to have a house of this type around me, a dear person, and I will obtain it, provided there is a wiser will than mine that has decided that all this will be for my good." It must be a completely positive state, both gentle, sunny, and determined, never accompanied by doubts, irritation, or impatience. To maintain this correct state of mind, it is neither necessary nor advisable to always keep in mind what you desire. The only thing capable of attracting success, beauty, and joy is our habitual state of mind, not the continuous thinking about what we desire. If you can anchor this state of mind in your heart and say to yourself inwardly and calmly, "I will travel, I will see the most beautiful tropical countries," then you can quietly forget about this desire for a moment, entertain yourself with other things, and prepare your desires in other areas, without delaying at all the force that will lead you to realize this journey. Every time this desire to know exotic countries returns to you, you only have to reintegrate it into the spirit of your unshakable will to obtain it. Nothing has more influence on the success or failure of any desire than our dominant state of mind, more than work, intelligence, insight, or application. Each mind is a sum of psychic substances collected in the infinite abyss of time, built from the experiences and memories of countless bodies. This psychic substance acts like a magnet. It has the ability to attract and repel thoughts, and like a magnet, it strengthens its force through work, just as any piece of iron can be magnetized by contact. Any person, even devoid of talent, can attract spiritual forces to themselves and thus become spiritually creative. The currents to which the person opens himself will determine the quality of his spiritual charge. If the person emanates decision, hope, joy, strength, righteousness, patience, order, and precision, he will attract over time more of these thought elements present in the environment. The elements that are already part of the success field of this person create a magnetic whirlpool that will bring forces of the same sign more and more rapidly towards the center, because the same elements are now in space and attract other similar elements coming from the bodies that we will encounter in the future, whose role is to support us or destroy us. These are the elements with which our fluids have already mixed long before entering the body. What is the meaning of life? No one can assess the meaning of their own life, which is determined by a higher universal destiny. a law that dominates and guides us. Where does it lead us? Towards an increasingly greater and unlimited ability to be happy. Every day and every hour, we progress towards happiness with increasingly sensitive, wise and clear organs. However, painful it may seem, the pains we undergo come from the very growth of the mind, which every day pushes us harder against the causes of our misery, so that we immediately perceive and accept this pain as proof that we are following the wrong path and that we must get out of it at all costs, for the one who takes it. Seriously, for the one who seeks deep within himself the right path, something will always appear to guide him, because one of the most subtle and profound laws says that no genuine supplication can remain unanswered. Every desire and every intense and genuine prayer must bear the desired fruits. People who seem to be pursued by errors may be the kindest and best, but they are people who speak harshly to their own beings. They do not realize where destiny wants to lead them, like a horse trembling under the whip, unable to overcome an obstacle. Where there is suffering, there is error. Where there is pain, there is always something wrong. Pain is the compass that guides us to the islands of the blessed. In the small circle of the wise, there are some who live in such harmony with the infinite that the line of their respective destinies no longer recognizes the suffering of tortuous paths. However, these few sages consciously retain a slight defect, a weak point in their psyche, to have a terrestrial compass capable of measuring the smallest deviations from truth, whose needle reacts to the slightest error with the body. Every thought or expressed desire brings us closer to what is desired, with an intensity directly proportional to the intensity of the desire and the number of people who share it. These people direct spiritual functions into certain orbits, setting in motion each of the silent forces of will that will help them shape what is desired. The secret of magic lies in the human ability to use to their advantage the most subtle and intense mental waves. Happiness and health are woven into the fibers of being. We must see our image freed from all evil week after week, month after month, year after year, until this dream becomes an obsession, a second nature, so that it continues to act in the subconscious. Never wait for illnesses or pain for tomorrow. Whatever illness or pain may exist today, tomorrow only awaits health and strength. In other words, health, beauty, and strength must become your daily dream. Because a dream expresses the correct mental state much more clearly than hope, the illness of unconscious tyranny. Faith is the seed of all miracles, but in this seed, evil as well as good can sprout. From the seed of evil can grow a tree on which all the noisy birds of ill omen will make their nest. Our dark and obscure imagination has faith in misfortune. When one of our organs causes us slight discomfort, after a day or two we already begin to expect this discomfort, and we begin to imagine that the organ is sick. Then we feel that this discomfort has a pompous name and sounds dangerous. All this intensifies the belief in misfortune. Then the influence of other brains comes into play. Friends and relatives worry and frighten us, reminding us of our condition. With all this, we fall into a vicious circle that weakens us even more. No one transmits their own feeling of strength and well-being to us. The imagination of being sick comes to us from all sides. The spiritual forces of everything around us act in the wrong direction. When a friend says goodbye, saying, "Get well soon," he does so with a compassionate and concerned tone, which seems to augur the worst. Now we receive the substance of what we have sown. Loved ones worried about us only promote our ruin. People with whom we only have professional or commercial ties are of little importance, but we must be careful not to share our most intimate moments with anyone, man or woman, who is not at our level. This inferior person will deviate our line of action or at least influence it. Therefore, much will depend on the person with whom we share our intimacy. These people have elements that for us can mean life or death, courage or cowardice, security or insecurity. A sum of unconscious tyranny emanates from family ties. Often adults attribute to their parents a place in life that they are not willing to occupy. The essence of this thought, never openly expressed, could be formulated as follows. Our mother is too old to wear such bright colors. It would be ridiculous for a widow to remarry. It makes sense for a mother not to want to participate in our celebrations. It is better for her to stay at home to take care of the children. It is time for Dad to retire. When it comes to getting results, no mental force acts with as much subtlety. None is as powerful for good or evil as the stream of homogenized thoughts that, coming at the same time from various people, concentrates to produce the desired effects on a specific person, whether conscious or unconscious. The force acts and produces a result. If the same opinions of 3 or 4 people turn towards the one who gave them new bodies, whom they call mother, the force of those opinions will be powerful enough to place the mother exactly where is most comfortable for the children. Thus, all this conventional thinking process could be expressed as follows. Mom is aging, and it is natural for her to gradually retire from active life and stay at home, to be able to enjoy with other retired relatives, and assert herself as superior in times of illness or family events. Thanks to the effect of this unified feeling that surrounds her, many mothers lose their privileges as individuals and behave exactly as their children unconsciously want them to behave. There are mothers who say, "I don't care what happens to me as long as my children grow up healthy. Then I will have accomplished my mission." However, a mother must bear in mind what will happen to her, because if her growth in wisdom and culture is limited, so will be that of her children. A good mother will always do her utmost to make her children admire her as much as they love her. But admiration and respect are reserved for those women who defend their place in life with firmness, strength, and freedom, and who tirelessly grow towards new goals. No mother can expect too much love and respect from adult children who hide in a corner of the kitchen, who become a symbiosis between nurse and babysitter, and who teach their family to be used as beasts of burden for all domestic calamities, real or imaginary. Precisely for the reasons mentioned above, many mothers are despised by their adult children or simply sidelined. Mothers who humble themselves so much because they mistakenly believe they are serving their children often end up paying bitterly for this mistake. Anyone who constantly lets themselves be guided by others, who abandons their inclinations and goals, who lives to satisfy the desires of others, gradually loses the right to make decisions for themselves. They accumulate around them so many foreign thoughts that they end up becoming part of them. They become an instrument that silently obeys the silent will of those around them. Such a person becomes a fossil, a helpless servant who gradually loses the physical and spiritual capacity to undertake anything. A grandfather, an old useless man sitting in front of the stove, tolerated more out of pity than desire, in many cases. This is due to the thoughts that adult children have towards their parents, who are too sacrificed. It's the silent power of spirits that act in a closed environment on fathers and mothers, and eventually sink them. Much of the decline and weakness attributed to old age originates from the negative influence of a group of spirits constantly seeking to dominate each other. Consciously or unconsciously, it doesn't matter. A man may run his business with enthusiasm and joy, but his adult sons increasingly interfere in the business. A silent young force gangs up against the old, creating a force against which an individual alone can hardly oppose. It's an intense, continuous and permanent pressure in a specific direction. Its effects are even more effective when the father is not aware of the pressure exerted on him, when he is not conscious of the existence of this type of hidden force. The only sign he notices is that he begins to feel tired, that the old energy gives way, and the man attributes this to the old age creeping up on him. Spending 10 minutes discussing your destiny or envying others' happiness generates in us a sum of forces intended to undermine our own luck. Every thought of envy or hatred comes back to us like a boomerang. Unpleasant feelings towards people who swim in wealth are a waste of time that not only brings us bad luck, but also destroys in advance the happiness that could fall into our hands. Most sick people spiritually prepare their sickbed by working hard and painfully for years to obtain it. Whoever waits for misfortune loudly demands it, and undoubtedly will get it. The accumulated bad habits of life must be cut at the root. Weakness generated by low self-esteem makes someone with low self-esteem not as appreciated by others as a person who respects themselves. Without self-esteem, no one will be willing to help you improve your position, There will be no flow of thoughts surrounding you. Many people who self-analyze conclude that there are positions in life they would never accept. Out of 10 women, 9 of them never imagined themselves as managers of the hotel chain for which they are now modest collaborators. However, sometimes a person in a similar situation of discomfort is capable of reaching a much higher position because they dared to think it. It was the invisible driving force that pushed them to achieve it. If we are persistent, destiny will always lead us where we want to be spiritually. And even if we don't directly reach the goal, at least we will get closer, reaching a better position than staying on the ground without goals or ambitions. Whoever thinks that something they offer to others has little value externalizes a force that makes others think that indeed it's something despicable. If you want to sell diamonds on the street and your appearance and behavior make others doubt the authenticity of your diamonds, 99% of potential buyers will think, due to the suggestion of your thoughts, that you are trying to sell them polished glass pieces. And the one buyer who recognizes that the diamonds are authentic will try to deceive you, thus reinforcing their own doubts. Do not falter. Never feel humiliated in the presence of anyone. Otherwise you will pour into your mindset a torrent of enslaving dependence and open the door that will let the same torrent through any unworthy event. You must admire and honor the talent of others, but always on equal terms, with the pure and deep desire that the same talent awakens and is born in you. Teach your children never to think they are worthless. If they get used to having no self-esteem, others will also get used to seeing them as inferior beings, first as children and later as adults. There is nothing more harmful to the individual than self-degradation, and many children start their lives weakened by the weight of perpetual criticism. Teach your children to dream, to believe and to expect success, for repeated hope of success creates the right motivations, the appropriate means, and the right path to achieve it. Forbearing injustice is even more blameworthy than committing it. Today we all continue to believe in many lies. Error does not manifest, so we continue to live according to our subconscious errors, and suffering stems from these subconscious errors. When we discover hidden errors in ourselves, instead of being depressed by them, we should rejoice, just as the sailor rejoices when he finds the leak that could have sunk his ship. Once our errors are recognized, they are subject to personal confession, if we can achieve it. And if we manage to overcome our proud stupidity, responsible for our lack of willingness to seek a way out, we will have taken a big step on the road to eternal happiness. Constantly ruminating on our own mistakes is damaging to the psyche and harmful to our health. The true food for the mind consists of thoughts that are constantly renewed, of our ever-changing and ever-growing interpretations of everything that happens within us and around us. Learning to look at things with fresh eyes every day, to daily review the plans, opinions, and goals we had set for the ending day. It's the mindset through which the mind becomes capable of receiving the daily bread that renews our body, our fear with a favorable sense for all humanity. Never stop being afraid of pain, death, losing money or love, and of anything else. Each individual has their favorite fear, an illness they have never had but still await, or anything else whose loss would particularly affect them. The slightest little thing or chance word is enough to bring their favorite fear to their consciousness, which after so many years of training is exposed to the devastating storm. This current virtuously vibrates in accordance with our nature that resonates with our favorite weaknesses. Then the body also suffers. There are countless different symptoms: weakness, loss of appetite, limb fatigue, inability to focus on our fundamental professional activities, and so on. The ability to receive thoughts can easily become a source of weakness or strength. It is precisely the sensitive and highly developed spirits that tend to have a fragile body, as they unconsciously absorb many harmful waves without having any idea of their existence. Personal relationships with inadequate people are one of the main sources of these ills. The more delicate female body is even more exposed to the shadows and mental rays surrounding it. The man immersed in his affairs sometimes manages to grasp a certain positive energy that allows him to push back the currents of fear. On the other hand, the woman tends to suffer 1,000 times more inside the home than their husbands imagine, who constantly wonder how much their wives suffer from these eternal illnesses. fixed ideas and irritability. When you are irritated, you decrease your power of attraction towards the good. You also do it when you feel depressed, dependent, nervous, or confused. At these times, strength acts in the opposite direction, towards evil. For example, desiring others' possessions, filling your mind with machinations to obtain an inheritance, nurturing concerns or even envy and hatred towards those who might be in a better position for an inheritance. All this fosters mental states that prevent the creation of this great attracting force and lead to a flow of petty, malicious and limited thoughts. Another great loss is to let oneself be carried away by malicious prejudices against others, even by internally participating in the foolishness of the majority. When you have conversations with people beneath your level, you lose power. Even if your superiority wins small victories, you also lose power when you destroy the character or problems of others, however spiritual and pleasing it may be, because you generate and emit mental forces that prevent you from adopting a much stronger position towards humanity, and thus achieve self-emancipation that emanates from yourself and allows you to directly access the best of others, in direct core-to-core contact, leaving everything else behind. Try to ignore as much as possible the thoughts of humanity. Speak as little as possible about it and with it. Keep a distance with a shield of goodwill and fight against any shadow of hatred, indignation and contempt that could act as a dark intermediary for current humanity, like a messenger of all that envy, that fanatically concentrated malice against the most refined man, whose mere presence is perceived from afar. If this more refined man emits a signal of hatred, he is lost. Only an active barrier of benevolence can adequately protect his soul. If, despite everything, the encounter is inevitable, be positive from the start, that is, emit currents rather than absorb them. Internally refuse access to everything coming from that environment. If you make their ridiculous concerns your own, your power of attraction will reverse, as it will absorb their effects, and you will mix your confidence with their skepticism, damaging your firmness with their hesitations. The human being who still knows when he lies remains relatively authentic and fresh. In him, the lie is contained in knowledge like trichinosis in meat. But most people have the body so infected with lies that they can no longer make this distinction. The nature of lying is not limited only to consciously spoken false words, but to deception, including self-deception. A lie that we have internalized in good faith blocks, like any other lie, the constructive elements of truth. Many barely standing lies can often be saved with the fresh blood of a truth, just as rabbit breeds, destined to disappear due to so much incest, mix with the pure breed to avoid definitive extinction. But the worst lies are half-truths. For example, welcoming someone into our home while secretly wishing they'd go to hell, smiling without the slightest desire to do so, pretending to care about someone's well-being only because they have money with the hope of benefiting from it, being part of a religion or association out of snobbery, opportunism, or prestige, announcing things we only half believe from a platform or pulpit, or responding with an ambiguous yes when we actually want to say a resounding no. All these small examples from the jar of daily lies, which, by the way, don't deserve much attention, generate an evil that even affects the body. It's like alcohol. It's not the occasional excess, but the small continuous doses of poison unconsciously absorbed every day that damage the body without the intoxicated person being aware of it. Once the body is saturated, it's no longer able to eliminate the poison until it becomes ill and ultimately succumbs because lies don't last. The fabric they're made of must deteriorate for the mind to find the appropriate tool to achieve its goal. In short, another failed incarnation. What seems bad and decadent to us is nothing other than the infinite consciousness abandoning a position that has become untenable. The second great disadvantage of lying is that it introduces us into the circle of all other liars, to whom, due to an inner kinship, we will be much more inclined to believe than an honest person. The shrewd entrepreneur in one sector tends to be deceived by the equally shrewd entrepreneur in another sector, because he doesn't like authentic and upright people. There is a silent antagonism without needing to say a word. The lies we ourselves offer daily to the universe in the form of words, breath, presence, and life are nothing compared to the lies we unconsciously believe, thus allowing them to act in the best faith in us and those around us. It's a psychic wound. Grey hair, wrinkles, any sign of cell breakdown in the body are the materialization of errors of this nature. They are signals that erroneous ideas have temporarily settled in consciousness. The fact that today someone has to ask the doctor what they should eat when the doctor knows barely more than the patient on the subject is an alienation of instincts that in nature is reserved only for certain degenerate predatory ants, forced to be fed by slave ants because they cannot find food themselves. The doctor knows at most something about diseases, but nothing about health, if only because the latter is a rare commodity. Throughout his life, the doctor has no contact with normal, healthy people. This is how the frightening statistics on the amount of protein we need daily, invented by the brilliant Living, were tested on a large number of German students with huge beer bellies, miserable engines that needed 3 times the fuel, because of this dose of protein established by inadequate samples. For over 30 years, throughout Europe, toxic protein substances were administered to perfectly normal people, especially children, thus contributing to the spread of acute appendicitis, gout, and other metabolic diseases. Whoever recognizes an ailment is already halfway cured. When a negative mindset overwhelms us, it's important to realize that we are being traversed by an external negative current, that we are in contact with many other dark and taciturn minds who are sending each other their disgusting mindsets, amplifying them to the unbearable. What we must do is pray, ask for the necessary strength to get out of this current of negative thoughts. We must eliminate from our consciousness everything that is unpleasant and incomplete, the negative properties of others and all the ugly and unpleasant things that surround us. Otherwise, the images of these thoughts will remain and eventually materialize in their specific correlation. Anyone who always imagines a person at the moment they make a characteristic mistake will probably end up making the same mistake. Ultimately, everything must be externalized, as language demands. Everyone should get into the habit of turning all their thoughts into words, because in this way, they become more concrete and can be eliminated by physical means. The word is the vehicle that carries what is ignoble in the soul. He who turns night into day will miss the most important appointments of the subconscious, tranquility as an accumulator of forces. Throughout the kingdom of nature, periods of activity are followed by periods of absolute tranquility. Plant circulation rests during winter, and animals content themselves with eating and sleeping. Even the earth rests waiting for new seeds. If from time to time, humans could dedicate themselves to this perfect passivity, those capable of absorbing more of the hidden power of the sun would shine in a spiritual and bodily awakening, where senses and forces would awaken whose existence is still categorically denied by many today. Through their calm and inner life, the Orientals, the Eastern peoples, have to some extent achieved power over these new senses that we certainly do not possess. The strength and domination of the conqueror, India is subject to England, but eventually conquers Western culture, so externalized. We are already at the feet of India, learning our first lesson, the alphabet of these laws and forces that our sages ignore. What are these forces? Where do they come from? How have they developed? From the power of silent spirits, harmoniously oriented towards a goal for thousands of years, but we harbor the superstition that we are incapable of doing anything without haste, nervousness, and effort. Nature needs rest to undertake the work of regeneration. This law, which operates in the most primitive life forms, also applies to higher forms. In everyone's life, there are periods during which all their forces and organs show some fatigue, a sign that we are undergoing a process of transformation. Nature puts us on hold. If only they followed these laws, in a few weeks or months they would emerge from these periods regenerated in body and soul, because nature asks nothing more than to be silent while it performs its work of regeneration. People in midlife say they have reached or even exceeded their maximum vitality and strength, and that from then on, for natural reasons, they will wither and decline like leaves. According to spiritual law, this unwavering faith in aging will inevitably make us old. This change at the peak of life only means that our body wants to regenerate, to be reborn. This recreation requires absolute tranquility because our very spiritual ego works to achieve this change. During this period, we should not exert ourselves excessively as in childhood, but in general we deny nature this rest, forcing our exhausted organism into efforts for which it is not prepared. During this time, when nature tries to rebirth us to make us stronger, we do not allow it and destroy ourselves. In most cases, humans are not capable of offering themselves the tranquility they need. They must come and go and work year after year to ensure their existence. This does not change the outcome. Christ, Moses, and all the visionaries and magicians were in tranquility, accumulating psychic forces that, once concentrated on a sick person, gave them new life. In the story of Martha and Mary, the latter chose the better part. For away from domestic affairs, she silently accumulated the strength that, well directed in a few seconds, accomplished more than Martha with her daily troubles. Martha was killing herself with work, while Mary was regenerating. The cultivation of tranquility increases with presence of mind. Presence of mind is nothing more than the ability to mobilize at any moment all the knowledge, capacity to act, firmness, and delicacy at our disposal. Its value lies in the simultaneous presence of all these properties, which in calm minds are concentrated and do not scatter, capturing 1,000 different things at once. He who manages to retain his strength and rest his mind will have nerves of steel, emitting a fluid capable of easily taming the wildest horse. Courage is an unparalleled magnetism. Its possibilities are limitless. We can make our bodies capable of resisting any material influence. We can make each of our organs 10 times more resistant than they are now. Where there is haste, there is always a little fear. He who runs to catch the train does so because he is afraid of missing it, and this fear increases the possibility of missing it even more. He who rushes to an appointment does so because he fears the negative consequences of arriving late. It is astonishing to see how much time we spend every day on fears. Through unconscious conditioning, these little psychoses can flood a person's mind to the point that they end up fearing to lose something at any moment and in any place, even when there is no risk, for example, by bitterly pursuing a tram as if it were an irreplaceable thing, when another will come behind, or worse, 3 minutes later. But the fear of waiting 3 minutes becomes a mountain like the pillow in a feverish dream, a frightening possibility simply out of habit. This catastrophic mindset will accompany this person during meals, walks, vacations, in short, in everything they undertake, making it increasingly difficult to keep a clear mind. The emotion upon which all this mindset and behavior rests is nothing but fear. Fear is nothing but the inability to control the emergence of thoughts. Our powerless self spits everything out like a geyser of mud, dirtying our daily lives and covering them with a grey crust. This completely unconscious training brings our mind to such a chronic state that it reacts with panic to any trivial event, brooding over disappointments where there are none. But he who cultivates fears of all kinds builds himself a dead end through which, at decisive moments of destiny, only fear will be able to circulate. Never let yourself be carried away by the desire to earn money, to accumulate wealth at the expense of health. It's like cutting off your feet to buy a pair of boots. Everything we undertake can be done without haste, without effort or anxiety. If you are tormented, it's a sign that something is wrong with your venture. When the mind and body work harmoniously and joyfully, maximum strength is generated. This force, properly trained for 2 hours, can accomplish more than 10 hours of rushing. During these moments of tranquility, parents should be exempt from all demands of their adult children. The same goes for birds and other animals of the forest. Only human mothers are never free from the demands of their offspring until they arrive at the grave exhausted and worn out. But they should be free. They should become what they were when they were young girls before becoming mothers. Motherhood is an indispensable and very important phase of human existence for certain capacities and recognitions to mature. We must not stagnate our whole lives in a single experience. The assistance of the current of sympathy is the most powerful means to achieve happiness, health, and success. In this context, by relationship, we mean something that goes far beyond physical proximity. The closeness of a person depends on the intensity with which we treat them mentally. The physical distance of their body is irrelevant. What else are social relations but a permanent tolerance and a tolerated being, a chewing of the same words, gestures, and thoughts year after year? These are the dead to whom the task of burying their dead must be left. Authentic and living life is a state with infinite facets, an opening of spiritual currents where spirits of the same level exchange their strengths and ideas. These are sources that lead back to the eternal being. Sympathy is the most important factor in any destiny. The mania for everything economic flows parallel to fears and misfortunes, and never reaches the current of enterprising minds and victorious forces. Individuals who live in these currents never cross paths. He who wants to approach the winners of life must change the direction of his spirituality. Only then can he continue his path. People who gather to pour curses and envy on others, all that is harmful will fall back on them with a force 10 times greater, because they will attract the same thoughts they exhale internally. The thoughts that are most frequently realized are also those that materialize most intensely in the organism. We absorb the errors and imperfections of others because we are mentally preoccupied with them. In scandal and appreciation of the imperfections of others, there is something of incense and ecstasy, something akin to champagne. But in the end, this kind of entertainment has a high price. Sympathy is strength. There is an active listening that acts as a tonic, and the benevolence of a single person without a trace of envy and derision is an irresistible current, the value of which cannot be calculated in dollars and cents. Similarly, desiring harm for another is an element that makes the person silently perceiving this desire against themselves a strong invisible wall that reflects it backward, without even a word or a look. Only a continuous current of kindness from their part can deflect this consequence-free effect. That's why it's so dangerous to create enemies. As fair or logical as the reason may seem, every tumultuous meeting, every family quarrel, every appearance among people floods the invisible with destructive substance, and even the smallest banality succeeds in irritating you without you knowing it. You will end up where this destructive substance acts, ensuring that any small explosion of your bad mood awakens the entire herd from which it will be more difficult for you to escape than to wake up. The only possible help is to stop thinking about it, that is, to immediately change direction spiritually, allowing yourself maximum satisfied look from above towards the pile of negativity that was about to fall on you and is now left outside, soaked by the rain, thanks to your little private concession. There are poisoned spiritual currents, just as there are poisoned metallic vapors or toxic arsenic. He who remains in a passive state in a room full of envious, hateful, disorderly, or controlling people absorbs from them an element of poisonous thoughts, laden with sickness and destructive force. An infinitely more dangerous element than a toxic chemical substance, for its effects are more insidious and mysterious, often manifesting days later and wrongly attributed to other causes. Probably never has there been so much hatred as today. Hatred is not limited to castes and estates. It is not only vertical and horizontal, but also diagonal. Peoples hate patriotically, from party to party, and among the masses circulate like small varicose veins in the body of humanity. The countless private hatreds from heart to heart. During meals, it is necessary to be particularly passive. He who ingests food, that is, matter for the preservation of his body, should do so in a calm, balanced, and joyful state of mind. Eating and complaining, arguing, or doing business means being active at a time when we should be in a state of absolute negativity. Whether these complaints or discussions take place out loud or only in thoughts doesn't matter. It's equally harmful when a person nurturing this negative mindset is present at the same table, against whom we should defend ourselves internally, but tolerate externally, which requires a good amount of energy. However, being positive in itself, simply sharing the table with people who live in pure sympathy. When all individuals sharing a space unite to transmit the same thought, the entire space becomes filled or charged with this highly spiritual ether. If this thought relates to power and aid, it will prevail in the space and, like a fluid, be transmitted to the next person who enters that space, giving them strength and assistance. If hundreds or thousands of people rush to that sanatorium or sanctuary with the same spirit, Each of them will leave their share of strength and aid. Over time, this space will become a powerful accumulator of spirituality, provided it is not used for other purposes, and access to low worldly or selfish thoughts is prevented. The accumulated strength in this space will help heal those who are sick and have turned to it in faith, strengthen those with weak wills, uplift those who are depressed, as if invisible rays are supporting them. However, no one should stay in that place for more than a few minutes to avoid fatigue or low thoughts accumulating there. We all have a vital need for a companion with whom we can be natural. We need at least one person with whom we can live our moods and feelings, in front of whom we can remove the mask and not always be on guard. We need moments where we don't have to weigh our words to say something intelligent and correct at all times, that is, having to keep our psychic bow taut when it should be relaxed. Sometimes we need the privilege and freedom to be mundane, to say silly things without fearing ridicule or long faces. The art of forgetting in every life, even in the happiest. There are thousands of things, events and scenes that would be better forgotten, even happy memories, because even happiness becomes stale. Even the level of friends should be able to increase every year, and tomorrow should be more exciting than yesterday. Whoever forgets creates space for new thoughts, and thus for a new life. Whoever hermetically seals themselves in present or past happiness will also end up old and grey with it. Forgetting does not mean total annihilation, something that would otherwise be impossible, for we are only the sum of our experiences. Every scene, smell, word and time are organic components integrated into ourselves, albeit in a confusing, underground and invisible way, but always ready to reappear on the doorstep through a series of mysterious associative laws. However, it is advisable not to let certain groups of selfish and maniacal memories cross that threshold. A correct experience is one we have forgotten. Whoever wishes to move victoriously straight toward perfection must not forget to balance the load their vehicle carries in advance. There are people who often relive in spirit old battles against their adversaries, and it is undeniable that these old spiritual battles in the realm of the mind always end well, that is, with the unconditional defeat of the imaginary enemy. Here, a continuous story is woven, infinitely rich in pleasant variations that culminate in a delightful conclusion, with the trembling dog, tail tucked and defeated from head to toe, prostrated before our imposing summary of all its wickedness. Anyone who believes this no longer matters, that it's simply innocent and cheap punishment for those who are on the wrong path, is gravely mistaken, for this game is one of the greatest luxuries a human being can afford. It costs life. Whoever practices it enters a cloud of cadaverous poison, is hypnotized into a now decomposed fictional life, sacrificing themselves for an imaginary triumph in the past and for a real triumph in the future. Whoever practices revenge is someone who acts on behalf of the past, that is, with misdirected energy of 180 degrees. Anyone who feeds on expired thoughts, the excrement of their expired egos, cannot keep their body fresh and beautiful. New impulses, the youthful future, will be imprisoned in the slippery cells of the soul. Flesh, bone, marrow and blood have become a rigid armor, a dead spirit. The weight of this ever-growing crust leads us to a state of weakness and lamentation. Only those who manage to free themselves from their worn-out armor and move toward the new with each youthful thought will succeed in rejuvenating their lives, and these thoughts will also materialize in the new body that belongs to them. Being able to die every day means that every past thought already belongs to the world of the dead. Spirits that grow healthy at the end of each day forever shed a part of themselves. They simply have lived fully. Continuing to use past thoughts is harmful. Psychic substance must be expelled in the same way that the epidermis liberates itself daily from countless cells. Otherwise, breathing, circulation, nutrition, and all the rest of the skin would suffer. People who manage to constantly increase the renewal of their thoughts in a single day are capable of living entire worlds. For them, happiness practically does not depend on the place and circumstances in which they find themselves. They can attract it even in prison. While those who are prisoners of their old ideas rot away living in a palace, it's a path toward almost total independence from the physical dimension, and independence is power. As long as we depend, to the extent that we do, on another person, food, a drug, or a stimulant, we will remain slaves. The only liberation from the prisons of material and spiritual misery is to have the ability to constantly create new thoughts. But even the liveliest, happiest, and most fruitful ideas must temporarily disappear from our memory so that a venture, a study, or a skill can achieve the maximum possible success. It is necessary that every day, at a certain moment, we completely forget about this venture, this science, or this art that occupies us. Otherwise, we will confuse the path with the goal. By focusing on the path, which should never happen, because on this mysterious path full of surprises, we are blind and we obsessively hit a dead end. Sometimes it seems to us that we are not making progress, but the truth is that circumstances are simply waiting for our understanding to clear up enough. Anyone who undertakes something with a great and valuable goal, and after doing everything in their power, continues to encounter inexplicable obstacles and setbacks, should immediately stop doing anything beyond what is strictly necessary. It is better to insistently ask one's own mind to stop obsessing over the issue and to trust exclusively the mysterious and secret force that hides behind all authentic things. Sleeping and eating alone and having fun, if one knows they have done all they could, should be unplugged and stop doing anything. The prevailing mindset and state of mind shape the abdomen and extremities, make us unpleasant or pleasant, attractive or repulsive in the eyes of others, and more importantly in our own eyes. They shape our gestures, movements, and way of walking. The slightest vibration of a muscle is due to a specific state of mind or thought. A determined mind always walks with a firm step, while uncertain minds drag their feet and waver. Determination stretches every muscle and fills it with a wonderful and invigorating fluid, especially when that determination is directed toward a goal advantageous, not only for ourselves but also for others. Selfishness that incorporates the well-being of others into its actions is wise selfishness, because in the mind we all form a unity where other invigorating and vitalizing currents circulate that promote what is good for many. In these invigorating and vitalizing currents that come from the invisible everywhere, even our little selfish boat sails toward its realization. We are all members of a great body. Countless invisible nerves traverse the space from being to being. Every bad thought is a pulse that traverses countless beings, but to favor the fertile processes of thought interconnection between us and others, it is necessary to preserve them in such a way that they are always fresh and chemically effective. And this is achieved only with the art of forgetting, which is nothing other than the ability to properly evacuate consumed or decomposed substances. Learning to forget something is as important as learning to remember something. Old age tends to make us see things as they were 50 years ago. Events and people always awaken the same associations of ideas, so the same story repeats hundreds of times. Such a brain cannot feed on new ideas because it seeks to live in the past. Decadence and death are its consequences. Slowly, the mind loses its power over the organism. Memory and senses begin to falter. Limbs tremble. Flesh dries up. Symptoms that the psyche, due to lack of its daily nourishment, that is, new thoughts, loses its domination over the body. To truly live, to increase our spiritual and bodily strength with age, to traverse each phase of our existence with ever-growing charm, and to overcome our last great adversary, death, it is necessary to constantly maintain the process of evacuating old thoughts. Boredom is a disease, not knowing what to do with ourselves, constantly sitting to reign over the excrement of our thoughts until, by poisoning ourselves, everything seems consumed and bland. Trying to kill time is trying to kill life. Anyone who succeeds in it temporarily loses the connection with the great source, the contact with infinite consciousness. It is the worst disease that exists. Wait calmly for success. He who is ready to take responsibility will succeed. He who is not ready to do so will be an underpaid pawn of those who have the courage to assume it. Dare, even in fantasy, to lead a large enterprise and manage large sums of money. Dare silently, in a small corner of your mind, to prevent anyone from mocking you, as always being seen at the bottom of the ladder is too cheap. Practice the art of waiting for success calmly. It is the most effective and fruitful method in the world for for investing the power of your thoughts. Foreseeing misfortunes, foreseeing obstacles, obsessing over possible difficulties is the surest way to fall into ruin and poverty. Responsibility does not necessarily imply worry, anger, concern, or irritability. The cultivation of the mind, which teaches us not to worry about things that have not yet happened, does not allow us to have thoughts about responsibility until it is necessary or advantageous. We should often talk about our grand and important plans, but only with people who have similar interests and goals. These conversations should be repeated at regular intervals, preferably at the same time and place, that is, not everywhere in a restaurant, on the street, or on a train, as they lose their strength and reveal secrets, even when there are no spies around. As the saying goes, the walls have ears. In crowded places, in any room that does not emanate peace, there is always an invisible, cunning, and thieving agent ready to steal secrets to sell to a foreign brain. This atmosphere, conducive to deep reflection and the exchange of enlightened ideas, will turn into a true intellectual sanctuary. The walls of this room will become silent witnesses to enriching conversations, shared laughter, and moments of mutual understanding. The furniture itself will bear the imprint of hours spent developing innovative ideas, solving complex problems, and weaving intellectual and emotional bonds. Over time, this room will not only become a refuge for creative thought, but also a place imbued with wisdom accumulated through discussions. The shelves will fill with carefully selected books, witnesses to the constant quest for knowledge and the search for new perspectives. The pictures hanging on the walls will tell visual stories, capturing moments of inspiration and discovery shared in this privileged space. By creating such an enclave dedicated to intellectual exchanges and benevolent thoughts, one erects a solid pillar for personal and collective growth. Individuals who frequent this place will naturally be drawn to the stimulating atmosphere that has developed over time. Ideas, fueled by the accumulated positive energy, will take flight and flourish, thereby fueling a virtuous cycle of inspiration and creation. This room will become a place where the boundaries of imagination are pushed, where dreams take shape, and where the boldest projects come to life. The intimate conversations that take place there will help forge unbreakable bonds among participants, creating a community of curious and visionary minds. Thus, this room will not only be a physical space, but also a dynamic ecosystem of flourishing thoughts and intellectual relationships. By investing time and energy in the creation and maintenance of this dedicated space, one cultivates fertile ground for intellectual flourishing and the realization of ambitious projects. The fruits of these efforts will be harvested over time, manifesting the transformative power of a deliberately preserved place for stimulating exchanges and promising ideas. Ultimately, this room will become a tangible testament to the human ability to cultivate an environment conducive to creativity and growth, reaffirming the immeasurable value of the constant pursuit of knowledge and intellectual experiences. This timeless wisdom about the power of intimate conversations takes on a new dimension when exploring the nuances of emotional management in this reserved space. The room, initially designed to be a sanctuary of benevolent thoughts, becomes a delicate arena where emotional balance is crucial. If exchanges are tinged with anger, or if a person's inner turmoil manifests, the walls will resonate with this discordant energy, generating a harmful force that can insidiously spread into all aspects of life. Learning to maintain emotional balance thus becomes an essential skill in this dedicated room. The secret, like a delicate treasure, acquires considerable magnetic strength when kept with the necessary serenity. The walls, although having ears, become silent guardians of well-placed trust. By understanding the value of the secret, one realizes that emotional restraint is not only an act of personal preservation, but also an altruistic act towards collective harmony. The idea of the room as a place of emotional relaxation then makes perfect sense. The positive energy emanating from pleasant and serene conversations acts as a shield, repelling the harmful forces that might otherwise manifest. The importance of maintaining this healthy atmosphere becomes crucial, not only for the individuals present, but also for the influence it can have on the external world. By deploying emotional mastery, The room becomes a beacon of stability, resistant to the emotional storms that may arise outside its walls. As for the notion of keeping a secret, it evolves into a lesson of discernment and patience. Releasing a secret into the ether may seem counterintuitive, but it may be the most effective way to preserve it. Allowing the secret to fade into consciousness, letting it rest in the depths of the subconscious, creates a natural barrier against insidious rumors that may spread. The resilience of a secret often lies in the ability to let it blend into the shadows, only recalling it when absolute necessity demands. In summary, this room reserved for intimate conversations becomes an emotional laboratory, highlighting the delicate dance between benevolent thoughts and emotional mastery. It serves as a reminder that the true power of this space lies not only in the ideas exchanged, but also in the emotional quality that permeates these exchanges. Do not play with it, even in your thoughts, for everything you think, you put into practice and temporarily place it outside of you, in a substance accessible to all, from where it could be reached by a foreign brain, in the form of a premonition or fleeting suspicion, which through your continued repetition matures there until it becomes an absolute certainty. An example of this is people who insistently claim that two people had sex long before it happened. Every great success has been kept secret, otherwise it would have aroused envy, conscious or unconscious, which once glimpsed the direction, deploys its forces to prevent it. Thousands of people have seen their destinies ruined by speaking openly at the wrong time or in the wrong place. If you do not know how to proceed in a given situation, venture simply, stop tormenting yourself. This will only strengthen your will and your purpose. In this way, you will only reap if you accumulate the forces that come from all sides, which can manifest as intuition, inspiration, coincidence, or opportunity. During this wait, you are not idle, but on the contrary, your aspirations will mentally guide you to the intuition, to the opportunity you need. Appendix. Some maxims will be given to you as much as you have given them. Never teach your child to despise themselves. If they get used to feeling that way, others will get used to despising them. From childhood to adulthood, only teach your child to dream and to wait for success. The prolonged waiting for this success creates the conditions, the means, and the ways to achieve it. No matter who we interact with professionally or commercially, we must be cautious before sharing our leisure hours with certain people. The middle ground usually goes through the sand. Parents who care for us usually work towards our ruin. Never wait for illness or pain for tomorrow. Whatever illness or pain you have endured today, just wait for strength for tomorrow. Look at things with a clear eye and learn to fly over your plans, beliefs, and yesterday's goals daily. Instead of being down when we discover errors hitherto hidden, we should rejoice in their causes, just as the sailor rejoices in having found the leak that would otherwise have sunk his ship. Much depends on the person with whom we share our leisure hours, for from them come elements that can mean life or death, courage or cowardice, lucidity or powerlessness. The complex dynamics of self-esteem and its impact on external perception reveals itself as a true game of social mirrors. A person with low self-esteem may be enveloped in an invisible aura of doubt and worry, sometimes overshadowing their actual qualities and skills. This reality underscores the importance of empathetic understanding in our social interactions. It becomes crucial not to judge quickly, but rather to seek to understand the different layers of complexity that make up each individual. The comparison with the physician offers a striking metaphor. The medical practitioner, although skilled in diagnosing ailments, may remain unfamiliar with the state of optimal health. Similarly, those immersed in circles where self-confidence is fragile may miss out on the richness of balanced and positive human relationships. This analogy underscores the importance of diversifying our experiences and interactions to gain a holistic perspective on life. Every thought, as the text highlights, is a brick in the construction of our destiny. Negative thoughts can form barriers that hinder our progress, while positive thoughts can open doors to unexplored possibilities. It is essential to recognize the power of our thoughts in creating our reality, and therefore, to cultivate a positive and constructive mindset. The text invites reflection on the responsibility we have towards our thoughts. Consciously choosing thoughts that build rather than destroy can be the foundation of a fulfilling life. Awareness of how our thoughts influence our perception of the world and our own destiny becomes a catalyst for more enlightened choices and intentional actions. Thus, every moment becomes an opportunity to lay a new brick in the construction of our destiny. Whether for better or for worse, our thoughts shape the world in which we operate. By cultivating understanding, embracing the diversity of experiences, and choosing positive thoughts, we become conscious architects of our own destiny, contributing to the creation of a life structure that reflects our deepest and enlightened vision. It is essential to understand that everyone is the guardian of their own being, and letting others dictate our essence is akin to relinquishing the helm of our lives. The idea that cautious individuals, always on guard, could be trapped in the labyrinth of constant anticipation of difficulties highlights the paradox of excessive caution. By trying to avoid obstacles, one may inadvertently attract them. Continuous anticipation creates constant tension, and this tension can become a self-fulfilling reality. The call to imagination as a starting point for advancing any endeavor offers a refreshing perspective. Imagination is the fertile ground where ideas take root before manifesting in the real world. Refusing a possibility simply because it seems difficult or improbable restricts the power of imagination. Where imagination is stifled, innovation is stifled, and progress stagnates. Cultivating an open and imaginative mindset creates a space where the seemingly impossible becomes the raw material for new realities. Stating that something is impossible simply because of its initial appearance deprives us of opportunities for growth and learning. Challenges, often hidden behind an insurmountable appearance, are often stepping stones to new horizons. It is in confronting the seemingly impossible that one often discovers unsuspected inner resources. Resilience is forged in moments when we dare to challenge assumptions and venture into the unknown. Cultivating an open-mindedness towards the impossible is not an invitation to unrealism, but rather to creativity and flexibility. By recognizing that the perception of impossibility is often limited by our current understanding, we open the door to innovation and discovery. It is in those moments when we refuse to be guided by superficial judgments that we transcend boundaries and give life to unexpected possibilities. Thus, rejecting the idea of something simply because it seems improbable is a manifestation of the unfortunate habit of refusal. It is a hindrance to personal evolution and collective growth. By embracing imagination, by showing courage in the face of the seemingly impossible, we unleash infinite creative potential, thus transforming obstacles into opportunities and contributing to a richer and more fulfilling existence. When large-scale projects emerge, it becomes crucial to share them with minds that share similar goals and interests. The synergy that arises from such discussions creates an atmosphere where creative energy can flourish. Ideas merge, mutually nourish each other, and divergent perspectives converge towards a common vision. This selective collaboration is not an act of exclusion, but rather a recognition of the importance of mutual resonance to nurture the growth and realization of meaningful projects. The focus on a goal, often regarded as an enlightened form of selfishness, emerges as a wise principle. This intense focus on a specific purpose acts as a catalyst, mobilizing not only the mind but also every fiber of the body. Determination, like a magnetic force, aligns all internal resources towards a specific trajectory. Every muscle, every thought, becomes a deliberate contribution to the achievement of the goal, creating a powerful resonance between intention and action. This determination, far from being a stern force, infuses invigorating vitality into the body and mind. It is a dynamic fluid that fuels every step of the journey, transforming obstacles into opportunities and challenges into growth catalysts. The result is not just an external achievement, but also an internal transformation, a metamorphosis nurtured by perseverance and commitment to an ideal. The reminder that feeding the mind with obsolete thoughts hinders the ability to maintain a fresh and beautiful body offers a powerful metaphor. Obsolete thoughts, like unnecessary baggage, can weigh heavily on the present, obstructing the flow of innovative ideas and limiting inner beauty. Freeing oneself from these outdated thoughts requires a conscious act of mental purification, a process to eliminate the superfluous and create space for growth. In essence, these principles evoke a holistic approach to the pursuit of grand projects. It is a subtle dance between selective collaboration, intense focus on goals, and regular cleansing of obsolete thoughts. By adopting this perspective, one builds not only tangible achievements, but also an inner journey rich in vitality, beauty, and fulfillment. Thus, each project becomes a manifestation of enlightened wisdom and resolute determination. Fear is nothing but another name for the inability to control the emergence of new thoughts. Only those who live in the purest sympathy are worthy of sharing the table. Courage is like a magnetic cloud that nothing can penetrate. 60 seconds of dreams are 60 seconds of living peace for body and soul, but I have had good times, and I pretend to have much better ones. Family ties are a sum of unconscious tyrannies. People who travel extensively and continually see new places and new faces are characterized by a certain degree of vitality that those living in the same place year after year do not possess. Contemplative life is creative. Do not be afraid to have fun. Heaven on earth is created by adopting the right attitude towards the little things of daily life. It is healthy to surround oneself with colorful objects. What pleases the eyes refreshes the mind, and what refreshes the mind refreshes the body. When you think of bright things, you will attract bright things to you. Every thought of envy or hatred will come back to you like a boomerang.